Tantor Audio, a division of recorded books, presents Rescued by the Celtic Warrior by Amy Jarecki. Narrated by Shiloh Gray. 1. In the year of our Lord 367, the Picts were the ruling force in Scotland. Untamable they were, and Emperor Hadrian shut them out by building a wall across the northern frontier of Britannia. For 200 years the Romans were successful in keeping the savages at bay, until the entire border fell in the barbarian conspiracy. Britannia, 367 AD. Unable to wait a moment longer, Valeria slid aside the wooden shutter and popped her head out the Roman carriage window. At last, the stone battlements of Fort Vindolanda loomed ahead. She laughed aloud and pointed, encouraging both Pia and Bishop Eleusis to join in her excitement. "Can you see the immense fortress walls? I cannot believe we shall see father after so many years." Joyful anticipation leapt across her skin. As the carriage continued further, Valeria clapped a hand over her mouth and gasped. The scene before the heavy gates quashed her delight. 20 paces away, 4 legionnaires savagely wielded whips against a man in shackles, hunched over, arms wrapped around his head. "And we call our soldiers civilized?" Though she desperately wanted to enter Vindolanda and be reunited with her father, no Christian noblewoman would allow such demonstration of untoward brutality to pass. "Stop the carriage!" Valeria shoved aside her cloak and jerked down the latch before her companions could say a word. Unassisted, she leapt to the cobblestones. "Valeria!" Pia and the bishop chorused from the carriage, but she paid them no mind. She marched up to the soldiers, fists clenched. "In the name of Emperor Valentinian, stop!" The red horsehair crest on the soldier's helmet shuddered when he whipped around and faced her, eyes fierce as a hawk. "And who the blazes are you?" He lunged forward and seized her wrist. Valeria fought to pull away, but his fingers bore into her flesh. "Unhand her!" Bishop Eleusis roared from behind. The soldier scowled. "This woman is meddling where she has no business." The bishop's white toga billowed in the wind as he strode toward them. "The lady is Valeria Fullaford, niece of Emperor Valentinian, daughter of our leader, the Dux Britanniarum himself." The soldier's grip immediately released. His stunned expression revealed his horror. Apologies, my lady." Valeria glared. "One should think before striking out." She rubbed her arm and smoothed her peplos gown. Pushing away her long black tresses, she turned to assess the prisoner. Her breath caught, followed by a stuttering of her heart. The man was enormous. He stood at least a head, possibly 2 taller than his captors. His hair flickered with highlights of fire, and she feared her fingers might sear if she touched it. Valeria leaned forward to better inspect him. Catching the hint of spice as wild as the forest made something stir deep inside. Her eyes narrowed. On his right cheek, an intricate swirling Celtic tattoo of blue extended down his neck and under the laces of his quilted surcoat. Valeria's fingers itched to touch it. Her stomach squeezed when his gaze met hers. Crystal clear, blue as the Mediterranean at its shallowest point, his eyes pierced through her heart like an arrow. He held her stare until a savage strike with a lash sent him stumbling forward. Valeria jumped in front of the soldier, shielding the prisoner from another blow. "Stop, I said." "He's headed for the gallows, this one." Her gaze strayed to the auburn-haired man. He locked eyes with her again. For an instant, the soldiers, Eleusis, everyone faded into oblivion. The prisoner bowed, his aqua pools of blue unwavering in unspoken thanks. Two soldiers latched onto his elbows and pulled him away. Helpless, she watched them lead him toward the gates. The bishop placed his hand on Valeria's shoulder. "Your carriage awaits, my lady." She shot him a look. Her heart still thundered in her ears, but the tension eased at the holy man's gentle expression. "We only need to ride through the gates, and our journey will be complete at last," he said. She blinked. Of course. Butterflies of excitement tickled her insides. "I cannot wait to see father." She looped her arm through his and allowed Bishop Eleusis to assist her into the carriage. She took her seat beside Pia, her trusted slave. The bishop sat across from them. "'Tis probably not the most ladylike thing to leap from a carriage and rush to a Pict's rescue." Valeria glanced through the window, but the soldiers had moved the prisoner out of sight. "That man is a Pict? A barbarian from beyond the realm?"
"Yes, he bears the blue mark of his heritage. Our soldiers report that of all the barbarian tribes, they are the fiercest warriors in battle, worse than the Gaels. They're the reason Emperor Hadrian chose to build the wall here. Picts reside to the north. Untamable they are."
The bishop rested his palm atop Valeria's hand.
"You need to suppress the fire blazing behind your lovely raven eyes. Please sit back, my lady."
Valeria slipped her hand away and rubbed it. How can people impart their convictions with no fire behind their motivation? Knitting her brows, she reclined beside Pia's matronly frame, clad in a slave's veil and grey tunic. Valeria wondered what crime the savage Pict had committed. It had been over 200 years since Hadrian had erected the wall across the northern frontier of Britannia, and they were still untamable, unable to recognize the culture and sophistication of Rome. Moments later, the heavy gates of the fort creaked open. After having endured 3 months of travel from Rome to Northumberland, she would finally enter her father's garrison, Vindolanda. She inched to the edge of her seat when the carriage rattled over the cobblestones. Craning her neck, she pointed at the Principia, headquarters of Roman Britannia. "See, Pia, we will be with father momentarily." The slave patted Valeria's arm.
"Yes, child, I can hardly believe our adventure is nearly at an end."
"An end? Whatever do you mean? It has only begun." Valeria grinned at the careworn face of the beloved woman who doted on her every need since the day of her birth, 8 and 10 years ago. When the carriage rolled to a stop, Bishop Eleusis lumbered down the stairs and offered Valeria his hand. She alighted from the uncomfortable wooden cart that had entrapped her like a tomb for the past 3 months. She giggled at the battle-weary face of her father, beaming as he raced down the steps, his impeccable leather and bronze uniform accenting his robust physique. General Argus Maximus Fulaford, Dux Britanniarum, spread his arms wide. Falling into his embrace, Valeria noted his curly locks had greyed in the 3 years of his absence. "How could this be, my darling child? You have grown into a beautiful woman." "Yes, Papa." Valeria bit her bottom lip. It unnerved her how her father could make heat inflame her cheeks.
"Let me have a good look at you."
He grasped her shoulders and held her at arm's length.
"You are as beautiful as your mother, and still have her fathomless eyes, I see."
Valeria's heart squeezed at the mention of Mama. "I miss her." His pointer finger lifted her chin.
"As do I. And now you are all I have left."
With strong arms, he drew her in. She closed her eyes and inhaled leather and masculine sweat.
Papa. Valeria was hit by a flood of memories of her father before he'd been called away and assigned to the far reaches of the Roman frontier. She hadn't expected her tears to well. She cleared her throat and buried her face in his shoulder to hide them. "Bishop," Argus said, pulling from Valeria's grasp, "how was your journey?" "Long and arduous." The holy man rubbed his backside. "These old bones will do well with a soft bed this night." Valeria stepped forward. "We could all benefit from a week of nights upon a real bed." "Ah, yes, you must be exhausted. I'll have Bacchus show you to your quarters. You can rest before supper." Valeria nodded, but the scene from the courtyard needled at the back of her mind. "Papa, we saw a Pict bound in shackles. His hair was the colour of fire." The ducks frowned. "Ah, yes, the oarsman. What crime did he commit to require an escort of 4 Roman soldiers bearing whips?" He pressed his hand to the small of her back and led her inside the immense oak double doors. "Desertion." "Oh? He didn't look like a soldier to me." "He was assigned to the navy. When his warship arrived in port, he broke his leg shackles and fled." "Shackled to a ship?" She stopped mid-stride. "He's a slave?" Father waved his hand dismissively. "Why worry yourself with this nonsense? Once he appears before the magistrate, the man will hang. 'Tis a pity indeed. Rome can always use a back as strong as his, but a deserter has no place in the empire." Perched upon a vanity stool, Valeria stared dreamily into the looking-glass. "Did you see his eyes?" "No, the only thing I saw was a roustabout receiving what he deserved." Valeria knit her brows. She'd thought her servant, born into slavery, might have been a tad more sympathetic toward another slave, but Pia was fiercely loyal to the Fullaford family. Like a second mother, she had supported Valeria through the miserable death of her mother and the trudging journey to Vindolanda. "It bothers me. Those eyes were so young, but the pain in them reflected endless agony." Since settling into her chamber, every time she blinked, Valeria saw the Pict. Her mind's eye had noticed everything about him. His size, combined with his tattoos, made him appear dangerous, rugged. Yet his eyes stopped her breath. They told a tale of pain and something else she couldn't quite put her finger on, something proud, almost regal. "How could you ascertain anything in the fleeting moment you saw him?" Pia yanked a comb through Valeria's unruly hair. "Sit still, or you won't be ready for supper, and you'll spend the night with nothing in your belly." "I don't think Papa would be that heartless, at least not on my first day." Valeria sighed, while she watched Pia twist her black tresses into a work of art. "I will stop thinking about the Pict this instant." Using the hand mirror, she inspected the chamber behind her. She'd napped on a large bed, shrouded by rose-coloured silk curtains. Imported from the East, they would have cost her father a small fortune. The orange shutters on her window were parted, and a sliver of light illuminated her wooden trunk, fastened with brass buckles. The chest contained her worldly possessions, keepsakes that had mostly belonged to her mother. Even the looking-glass she held in her hand had been her mother's. Pia pulled a braid woven with a blue silk ribbon around her crown, allowing the hair in the back to cascade down past her waist. Valeria nodded approvingly. "I have no idea how you do it. Every time you turn my wild mop of locks into a masterpiece." Pia chuckled. "I did the same for your mother." She stood back and appraised Valeria's hair. "I do believe you are even more beautiful, my dear." "You must be touched in the head if you think so. I remember watching Mama dress and admiring her beauty. I could never hope to be half as pretty." Valeria placed the looking-glass on the dressing table and stood. "Now, please tie my sandals. I'm starving." Pia bent down as requested. Valeria preferred Pia above all others, and only Pia had accompanied her on the journey from Rome. A sharp rap at the door made Valeria's gaze snap up. "Yes?" "Your father sent me to fetch you for supper, my lady," a voice resounded. Valeria nodded, and Pia opened the heavy oak door. A legate, a lieutenant, holding his helmet under his arm, stood with a serious frown stretched across sneering lips. "I am Quintus, protector of Rome and the Dux Britanniarum." He held out his arm. "May I escort you to the dining hall?" "Yes, thank you." Valeria glanced up at him as they walked through the cloisters. With narrow dun eyes, he wore his brown hair cropped short, which accented his inordinately large nose. He was not tall, but the short tunic of his uniform emphasized thick legs. "Do the officers follow the same fitness routines as the soldiers?" He smirked, looking down the length of that nose. "Officers are required to practice swordsmanship daily. I believe I'm more fit than any common soldier. I've always maintained the same fitness regimen, whether Gaul, Egypt, or Britannia." "Have you travelled widely, then?" Valeria wondered if his arrogance reflected indifference toward her. Since she didn't find him pleasing to the eye, it might be best if he was indifferent. "Some. I was born in Gaul, where I received my training. I've been in the province of Britannia since Valentinian rose to power, and my entire legion was dispatched to patrol the frontier." 3 years, is it?" Valeria asked, fully aware of the length of time her mother's brother had been emperor. "Yes, my lady." Guards opened the double doors. Valeria gasped when they stepped into the great chamber filled with Roman officers. There was not a single woman. "My, it appears I am outnumbered." Quintus led her along the wall. Conversations lowered to whispers and heads turned in their direction. "I trust the men will enjoy your presence. Few officers have the pleasure of the company of a woman, especially one as pleasing to the eye as you." Valeria smiled and pulled her hand away. "Thank you for the escort, Lieutenant." The volume of conversation in the hall escalated again. "My pleasure. It would be nice—" Quintus shifted his weight between his feet. "Yes?" "Would I be able to escort you again?" "If you wish." Valeria found it odd he showed no emotion, not even a smile. He bowed his head and took his place with the others. "Papa." Valeria kissed her father's temple and nodded a greeting toward Bishop Eleusis. My dear, sit, sit." Father stood and pulled out her chair, and Valeria gratefully slid into it. "You must tell me of your journey." "The best part is it's over." She leaned forward, giving Eleusis a wink. "The bishop lulled me to sleep with his lessons of piety and faithful living." "Is that so?" Argus turned to Eleusis. "I hope you chided her for any inattentiveness." "She listened well. I only had to rap her across the knuckles a time or two." The doors from the kitchen opened with a waft of rosemary roasted lamb. Servants poured into the hall with trays piled with meat, bread, and vegetables. Valeria sipped her grape juice as a proper Roman woman would, noticing the many sets of eyes that strayed in her direction. Her gaze darted across the hall as her insides roiled, wondering if someone in this room could be her intended. Father's message had been clear. It was time for her to wed. "I'd like to visit Mia in the morning and take her riding as soon as possible." Father frowned. "You'll need an escort. Keep in mind it is not common for a Roman lady to ride, even side saddle." He brushed a lock of hair from her forehead. "You must always stay south of Hadrian's wall. It marks the end of the empire. Crossing it is forbidden for all Roman subjects unless under military order." "Can I not ride alone if I stay near Vindolanda?"
Her father's silver curls jostled when he shook his head. Absolutely not. Thieves lurk in every dark corner. My, what a savage country we have come to. That it is, my dear. He turned to the bishop. Eleusis, what are your plans now you have safely delivered my daughter?
Once I have rested, Pontiff Damasus has decreed I construct a monastery in Pons Aelius.
Ah, an ideal location for the soldiers. I'll see to it you have a century to accompany you. A contingent who can remain to help build.
That is very generous indeed.
Argus grinned and sipped from his silver goblet. I trust my generosity will not go unnoticed by the Pope.
Of course, I'll send him a missive advising of our good fortune.
Valeria's thoughts wandered to the Pict again. The mere memory of his powerful stature made her heart flutter. If only she could talk to him, she might understand why he'd fled. Surely life as an oarsman would not be as bad as life as a barbarian. Valeria leaned forward.
Bishop, we must pray over the prisoners before you leave.
Ah, yes, we must. Her father sat back and folded his arms. The jail is no place for a young lady. Bishop Eleusis nodded.
I agree. Not to worry. She will be under my watchful eye at all times, my lord. 'Tis a good exercise in piety.
Valeria restrained her smile as she chewed her rosemary herb lamb. She would see the Pict again, at least one more time before he was led to the gallows.
Valeria.
Her father's voice jolted her from her thoughts. Play your lyre for us. I'm sure the men will enjoy a bit of entertainment. He snapped his fingers, and Pia appeared from the shadows with her harp. Given the overwhelmingly male company, Valeria would have preferred to hide under the table than perform, but she graciously acquiesced to her father's wishes as he led the officers in applause. Moving to a stool on the dais, she blew on her palms to dry the perspiration. Choosing a ballad learned from her mother, she stroked the strings of her lyre like the tumbling of a brook. The room fell silent. To my love, gone for so long, to him I sing this song. My lips caress the air, may the breeze take it there, to him where he can hum along. With her eyes closed, Valeria cast her nervousness aside and sang the simple tune 3 times, ending with a melodic strum. As she finished, she dared steal a glance at the crowd. A grey-haired officer stood and clapped his hands vigorously. Valeria scanned the long table as the men pushed back their chairs, stood and applauded. Her father rose and kissed her hand. Quintus joined them. Would you care to take a stroll through the gardens? He folded his arms and tilted his head back as if protecting himself from a lash of her tongue. Why had he asked? She was about to excuse herself as too tired when her father stepped in. Please grant me that honour tonight, Quintus. However, Valeria needs an escort to exercise her horse on the morrow.
A woman?
Ride a horse? What of her chariot? Jaw-dropping, Quintus didn't hide his astonishment. Valeria crossed her arms. Pardon me, but I am quite skilled with my mount. Quintus's eyes bulged like a codfish, but the ducks interjected. Lieutenant, if you must know, I had the Tantor fashion a side-saddle like that of Goddess Luna for her ladyship. As a young girl, there was no keeping her from the horses, and her mother and I deemed a side-saddle the best compromise. Valeria has become a horsewoman in her own right. Quintus frowned. The lady could not be seen on the streets of Rome propped on a horse. It would be shameful. Argus pushed between them. Quintus, mind your station. Valeria rides where I allow it. You may escort her on the morrow, else I shall appoint another, less opinionated officer. Quintus took a step back. white lines forming around his lips. Ah, yes, a ride would be just the thing for us to become better acquainted. His gaze travelled to Valeria's breasts as he bowed. On the morrow, then. It slid to her hips. Shall we ride after the midday meal? Very well, Valeria clipped. She would have preferred the bishop or anyone else to ride with her. She certainly didn't care for Quintus's pompous attitude, or the way his pretentious eyes peered over his gargantuan nose and raked across her body. It made her feel as though she were chattel. 2. Cauldrons of fire lit the garden path as Valeria walked arm in arm with her father. Though she wore a cloak, she shivered against the chill. Papa seemed unaffected with his arms and legs exposed beneath his leather uniform. "Are you cold?" he asked. She pulled her cloak closed. "I'm all right. 'Tis much cooler here." "True, the damp can cut through to the bone. You'll need a cloak of fur before winter comes, but the summer months are mostly agreeable." Valeria filled her nostrils with the crisp night air. "It smells clean, fresh, like it has just rained." Generally speaking, it seemed it has always recently rained. They came to the end of the cobbled path. Father led her up the steps to the fortress lookout. The fort battlements were made of stone with uniform notched crenels for archers. She peered through a gap. Light flickered on the horizon. Father pointed. "'Tis Housesteads, one of the mile castles on the wall." "Oh my, I didn't realize we were so close." His chest filled with pride. "We've a fort every mile. Nothing can penetrate Roman walls." Against the moonlit sky, she made out the outline of the wall that stretched into oblivion. Even out here on the frontier of the empire, colossal Roman architecture took a breath away. "You must take me to see them all." "I will in time." He placed a firm hand on her shoulder. "And how are you settling in? Are you happy with your quarters?" "My chamber is comfortable. I think I shall like it here." Father turned and wrapped an arm around her shoulders, inhaling a deep breath through his nostrils. "I brought you out here to talk about you." "Oh?" "My dear girl, you have become a woman." He cupped her face in his hands. "'Tis past time for you to find a husband." Valeria's insides dropped as if she'd jumped from the 20-foot wall. Couldn't he let it pass for a few weeks? Or months? "I had Quintus escort you to dinner for a reason. Did you find him pleasant?" Her head spun. Quintus had been polite, but a possible suitor? She cringed. Valeria pictured him taking away her riding privileges and shuddered. "Goodness, I barely spoke to him, Papa." "Consider it on your ride tomorrow. Quintus has proven himself to be a fine officer, and I can see him as a general leading his own legion in the future. He would make an excellent match." Valeria stared at her sandals. Heaven help me. The next morning, when at last Valeria escaped Piers primping with a ribbon of blue silk holding her unruly locks away from her face, she paid a visit to the kitchen and hid a leather parcel of food under her cloak. Then she headed for the garden and found Bishop Eleusis waiting under a budding sycamore tree. The purple sash over his white toga fluttered behind him. "Are you ready for this, my child? A jail can be like hell on earth." She looped her arm through the bishop's. "I will have you with me." She shivered as a breeze billowed through her cloak. "'Tis spring, and the air is as cool as a winter's day in Rome." The bishop nodded. "I've heard many a soldier complain about the cold on the frontier. When they return to Rome, the legionnaires bemoan the stinging rain and bone-chilling gale of the north wind." Valeria grinned. "At least I don't have to worry about winter today. I've never seen a land as lush and green. 'Tis a blessing."
That it is, my child.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?